Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the MSP Initiative Live. And I am live here in Dallas, Texas at Right of Boom. And if you haven't checked out Right of Boom or know what it is, go to rightofboom.com. Basically, it's a conference built for MSPs to help them understand what happens after an event. Obviously security focused here. But lots of good people in the room. Actually, a little bit of a who's who in the MSP land has shown up at this event. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get to some basic housekeeping. So, MSPinitiative.com. This and every other session we've ever recorded will be listed here under sessions in audio and video format. So pick whichever one works for you. This session is also being recorded. Yes, it will end up here underneath the sessions. I'll remind you that at the end of this session so that you know where to go and find it. We also have our community block parties. Obviously, these have taken a little bit of a mind of their own. Yes, we still are reliving the All-American Rejects back from November. Can't promise you we're going to have a radio recognizable band at every block party we do, but we're excited for 2023, and there should be several coming up. We also have our MSP Community Mind event, plural event. One, sorry for my browser taking a little bit of time to catch up to me, but one will be in Dallas, one will be in Denver. Our goal for these events are supposed to be workshop-based events where we're going to have experts from around the industry come and actually get you through a topic. More than just a PowerPoint presentation, we want to actually get you through a workshop concept where we're going to actually work through that theme. Is it legal? Is it sales? Is it marketing? Is it operations? Is it profitability? What is it? So we have experts from around the industry we're bringing in to basically workshop you on those topics. We're now beginning to build out what those are. We'll be announcing those soon. But these events are totally free for MSPs, and it's our way to give back to the community. Lastly, on MSPinitiative.com is community offers, which is a list of vendors who have decided to give away special promotions to you. Should you want to take advantage of them, we'll be adding more to those as time goes on. And those are all of the housekeeping items of the day. So that being said, our special speaker today is Stephen Smith from Hunter Artemis. How you doing today, Stephen?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Awesome.
Good.
Not too bad, like the rigors of traveling, as you know, never easy. Still recuperating a little bit from being out in Arizona for the Super Bowl, but always love to be here in the MSP community, and doing okay. Where are you based out of, Stephen?
So I actually live in St. Petersburg, Florida, Tampa Bay, but right now I'm in North Beach, California, LA, California for the ASCII event. And it just seems no matter where I go, the bad weather so far this conference season follows me. I was in Chino Pro, Dallas, where I got iced over a couple of weeks ago. And then this event now, they said it's the first time they have snow advisories in downtown LA. So I think I'm just cursed at this point, but we'll see.
The snow and the ice is following you across the country.
I know, from a boy from Florida too. So it doesn't make any sense.
I get it. Well, the best advice I can give you is get a nice winter jacket and a great hat, and you'll be in good shape.
Yeah, and not pack shorts. So I gotta remember that one. So
yes, shorts in the snow. I guess you're one of those guys who shows up to the football game, paints a letter on your chest, and you're out there with no clothes on. Not that I would think that that's a good idea, but they're always there, especially in Green Bay when it's negative degrees outside. So probably not one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I would be one of those guys, but in Tampa, it's a little bit more. I'd probably put some suntan lotion on or something like that, just so that I don't get burned. But I don't have to worry about frostbite. I have to worry about getting burned by the sun. So
yeah, 100%. So you're out in California. How is that ASCII event? I heard it was fairly well attended.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually it's pretty packed. I was surprised. Normally, when I come to West Coast events, they're kind of hit or miss. But I mean, I've gone to several ASCII events before, and they always turn out pretty good. But this is pretty good so far.
That's great. Glad to hear that. Well, here in Dallas at Right of Boom, I don't have the exact count. I would say somewhere between 500 to 600 people here on the
Nice.
ground, excluding vendors and staff, talking about actual, attendees to the event. Heavily security focused show down here. They have some great speakers. They actually created an entire workbook for people to follow through the event, which is kind of great. Different approach, right? Where people are trying to actually learn in like a cumulative way, right? Each session builds on the session before it. So I really like the format that they put together. I know this event was in Tampa last year, so they moved it here to Dallas, I guess, just to be a little bit more centrally located. But yeah, there is a little bit of a who's who here in MSP land. Arnie Bellini himself and his son here with their new company. We have a lot of the popular names here, right? Roost, Lineguard, Huntress, Sophos. I mean, there's probably about 25 vendors in the room. A lot of people that you would consider like Vanguard guys in MSP land are here. A lot of executives from some of the bigger companies have flown in. So it's really interesting, right? People that you probably wouldn't see, in my opinion, until you get to a larger event, seem to have popped out to this one to check it out.
I mean, that's obvious. If you're there, if George is there, then that means it's obviously going to be a well-attended event. So, I mean, I think you just need to give me your event schedule so I can, make sure I'm at the right ones.
Well, that's a good point. We actually just posted an industry calendar on MSPinitiative.com. So we're just trying to like consolidate, like everybody else, all of the events happening. So happy to share my travel schedule with you if you think it'll help you out. But yeah, sometimes, it's hit or miss, right? I don't always get to really, really well-populated events. I try to, but this one was actually a pretty good one. So if you haven't heard of Right of Boom, I would keep an eye out for 2024, right? And kind of circle that one on your schedule. I think that would be a good one.
100%.
Awesome. So, Stephen, why don't you give us a little bit of your background for people who don't know you? I'd like to just do kind of like that walk down history lane so that people understand how people get into the technology industry. Yeah. Everybody has a different path, and I'd love to learn your story a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing sales and telemarketing for 25 years. So obviously, where I'm from, Tampa is the call center capital of not really the world. There's more call centers in the St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Tampa area than I think anywhere else. You can throw a stone and hit two of them with one stone. So, so I've been doing telemarketing since I was 17. Started running my first call centers by the time I was 20. I ran call centers, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, traveled all the world setting up call centers. Then got into C-level, CISO, CIO, event space, started a call center for a company, booking C-level executives for Fortune 1000 companies. And then from there, somebody told me, hey, you should check out the channel and jump up and start working with MSPs. So started doing some consulting and BDR work and sales work with MSPs and some vendors about 10 years ago. And then from there, just kind of started Hunter Artemis, and now we're rocking and rolling, helping the channel grow their business.
Interesting. So, you probably have heard now that you've been consulting in MSP land for some time that sales and marketing is probably the top 2, 3, 4, 5 things that have come up and continuously come up for what feels like decades. Nobody seems to have cracked this for some reason, or just is constantly plaguing MSPs. Nobody's, found their groove. One could argue that telemarketing is an old school methodology, and some say, hey, you need to lean into inbound marketing. Some say, hey, you need to do a lot of events. Some say, hey, you need to go door to door still. Some say, hey, you need to go to your chamber of commerce and do some sort of, lunch and learn or panel. So like, hold on, come on, Schlegel, say hello. Remember I say who's who? There's Jason. He loves to stir the pot, right? Always. So does telemarketing still work in 2023? I would probably think you're going to say yes, but why? Why should either MSPs or vendors who sell to MSPs still take this track?
Well, I mean, cold calling is definitely not dead. I think every couple of years, some marketing guru comes out and says cold calling is dead. You got to pay for pay per clicks. You got to pay for digital. You got to do this. This is where you need to put your spend in. And then that guru takes everyone's money, and then no one gets any leads or grows. And then everyone goes back to cold calling, because at the end of the day, that warm reach out is still where most of the leads are. I mean, you go anywhere, you open up your Facebook, you open up your Twitter or LinkedIn, and you're just inundated with ads and things being pushed in your face. And like, how many times do you actually stop and actually look at it, right? But now if I call you and you actually pick up the phone, and that first 5 seconds, I say something that's just engaging enough to keep you on for another 10 seconds, right? So you tell me where the power is, right? A bunch of ads that you're not going to look at because you're scrolling trying to find something in particular, or somebody catching you off guard and having enough ammo to keep you on the phone, right? So I think until they get rid of phones, I think cold calling is always going to work. So actually, I had this argument the other day with the digital marketing person, and I told them that we could put up a bet. We'd take 3 months of them doing digital marketing with the same spend, and I take 3 months of me doing cold calling, and let's see who produces the actual most qualified appointments. And they obviously they didn't want to take the bet. So
that's interesting. So give me an example of a successful campaign for an MSP who's trying to get net new customers, right? Like, how do you curate that list? What is the talk track like? Like, I'm just trying to understand where if somebody who has either not tried this recently or at all, as an MSP, lead gen is very difficult for some people. How would that work? Can you give us an idea?
Yeah, no problem. So first, I do want to preference though, saying that the digital marketing and that other side of marketing is very important. I don't want to say that those aren't things that MSPs and others in the channel shouldn't do. I think those things are great for branding, and it definitely, the cold calling and digital marketing going hand in hand is an important piece for success. So just want to make sure that if anyone out there in digital marketing land, I'm not saying that you guys aren't any good. So just saying it's different. But no, so for in terms of cold calling, when we're talking about finding the qualified leads, the leads that MSPs want to get, right? You have to start off with a list. So I see so many different call centers and so many different clients doing that on their own, MSPs doing on their own, where the one place they shouldn't try to save money, the one place they shouldn't be cheap, is when they're buying the list, right? So when you're going and you're shopping for the right list vendor, and if you're looking at it and saying, oh, that's too much money for that list, the reason that list is more than the other ones is because it's a better list, right? So don't cheap out on the data that your caller is calling, right? That is the number one sin in telemarketing. The data is strong. You're even a weak caller is gonna find luck, right? And then make sure that when you're buying your data, that you're only getting the verticals and the seat counts and everything that you want in your list. So make sure you go through it once you get it, and then from there, I would use things like email drip campaigns and digital marketing and LinkedIn campaigns to kind of warm up what your caller is doing. So that's it's
So
definitely a good start.
this is interesting. So where does somebody go to buy lists, right? Is it Zoom Info? Is it like is it a Dun and Bradstreet? Like, where do you even start?
So I am actually a big fan of Zoom Info. I know some people aren't. I think Zoom Info is great if you learn how to use it. But I think like most things, right? When we buy a subscription for something and then we go through the onboarding and training and they show us how to use it, half the time we're paying attention to the onboarding and training, and then the other half of the time we're paying attention to something else. So we miss key things that they're showing us on how to pull a really good list. But a couple of years ago, Zoom Info wasn't my go-to. There was another company that Zoom Info ended up acquiring. And to me, that was once they acquired that company and acquired their practices, where they actually have their own call center. They're live proofing the data, meaning they're calling and checking the data to see if that's actually still the CEO, if that's actually still the CIO, right? But using the Zoom Info list has been a big part of what we do. Their intent-based data is something that will definitely give any MSP out there an upper hand when buying a list.
What does intent-based data mean?
Yeah. So let's say George at MSP Initiative, or anyone at MSP Initiative is looking for cybersecurity, right? Or MSP managed services, or IT outsourcing, or backup recovery, whatever keyword you want to use, right? And your employees at MSP Initiative are Googling these keywords and looking for the right cybersecurity vendor, the right managed service provider, right? What happens is they capture those searches, and that's the intent, right? So they can track that back to that location. Now they can't tell me if it was George that was there looking for it. Then they can't tell me exactly who, but they know somebody at this location was searching for these keywords. And then the more times they spend on that search, the more times that search happens in a month, the stronger the intent. So that shows us. So when we pull leads, we try to pull leads with only intent, right? So that actually gives us the when we're calling. We know that George is looking for cybersecurity services. He's looking for outsourced IT. So we're already calling somebody that's in the last month has been searching for the things that we're trying to set an appointment for. Oh, we can't hear you, George. Not yet.
Looks like the audio portion, George, is shut off, because I know you're using one for video, one for audio.
Yeah, I think the audio one is muted.
Oh.
How about now? You got me?
Yeah,
There we go.
All right. Sorry about that. So obviously the idea is that because you have some sort of quick time frame in between the time somebody took an action or not, you're more likely to actually hit on somebody that's still actively searching for a service or a product or some sort of solution, rather than you going completely cold.
Exactly. Right. So and
Cool.
it doesn't always work out. So it really depends on the market, and it really just depends on what's going on at the time, right? So even big markets, sometimes we'll go to pull intent leads, and we can only pull let's say 200 out of the 1,000, right? But that's fine. I mean, we'll pull the 200. And then the rest of the leads will just pull normal leads, right? But the normal leads from Zoom are still great. So,
so do you like? I assume there's some sort of geography and then vertical, and then you can like lean into maybe employee count, and then like you can start to like filter down into exactly who you're targeting.
Yeah, exactly. So, we, obviously, most MSPs are regional, some, are national. So just everyone's different, right? So what we do is, whenever we're talking to a new MSP that's going to onboard with us, or I'm helping another MSP train their cold caller, we start off with always, like I said, first thing is you start off with this list, right? So, what areas do you want to go to? What areas are too far? What areas are do you want to stay away from? What verticals? Now, this is where, another place where a lot of people make a mistake when pulling lists, right? So especially when we're talking about MSPs, right? Let's say if you say, I only want to deal with people that have 10 devices or more, right? Or 20 devices or more. You're not gonna be able to pull that data. You can only pull head counts, right? So where people make a mistake is that they group all their verticals in one, and then they pull 20 and up or 10 and up, right? Thinking that that's gonna give them, oh, well, every person has a device. Well, no, let's say, and I was just having this conversation with an MSP the other day. Let's say if you deal with lawyers, doctors, manufacturers, and industrial, right? And you pull those four verticals, and you say, I only want 20 and up because I only want to deal with 20 stations and up. Well, you're gonna have a big problem, right? Because your lawyers and your doctors most likely are gonna it's gonna be a good account, right? Because you're gonna have 20, plus devices for them, because those are office people, those are office jobs. Now, when we talk manufacturing and industrial, there's shifts that are going on. Not every person that's sitting there, in the steel mill has a computer, right? So you pull, 200 employees, you're only going to get 20 devices, right? Maybe even less. So what I always tell people to do is split up your industry, group the ones together that make the most sense together, and then take your industrial, your manufacturing, and then raise the employee count to get down to your actual device count. So, and even then it's not going to be an exact science, but what happens is that if you try to pull everything at once, you're not going to be able to use half this list, and you just paid for it. So you wasted your money. Now you're getting frustrated, saying cold calling doesn't work, and you're looking for other sources.
So so you said don't cheap out on the list. What should you budget in order to start with a good list? Is it $10,000, $100,000, $1,000? What would you say is a good starting point?
I would say, so Zoom Info is a subscription service, right? So you get so many bulk credits, right? And then you get so many a month, right? And then you have to pay, I think it's like, 12 grand, whatever it is, for the year, right? And they'll break it up in payments for you, but the investment's worth it, especially if you're gonna carry that cold caller on through the whole year. So one little trick with Zoom Info too, go find yourself somebody like an outsourced person, like a data entry person, because Zoom Info will let you view. Let's say if you only buy 20,000 credits, right? And then you get 1,000 a month. Zoom Info will let you view like a huge amount of leads, right, in their system every month. So you have that person going through and copy, pasting, and building you a lead list as well. There's no one from Zoom on this call, is there? Because I don't want to get my account shut down. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay, so where do campaigns for MSPs work and where do they fail? Meaning, is it if you go too wide, things don't work? Or if you're trying to not, like you have to verticalize when you're doing these types of calling campaigns? Like, how exactly would you suggest to start to create a successful outcome?
I mean, obviously, if it's your first time running your own campaign and you're an MSP, start off, in within something that's a driving distance, right? Or actually probably closer, right? Like as close as you can to your home base, right? I don't really buy this state is really too hard to call in, and New Yorkers are possible to cold call in, and because that's actually a myth, right? The biggest part of the different geographies is just a different caller, right? It's if I hire a caller from New York, right, I need somebody that's fast paced and energetic and is gonna come in, jump on the call and smack you in the mouth, right? And because if not, you are not going to respect me, right? You are not, and that's the same thing in the Philadelphia area. Jersey, right? Like that whole area, even Massachusetts, right? If you are not high strung and off to the races, as soon as that call picks up, they are going to eat live, right? But that same caller, you put them in California where everyone's a little bit more laid back, or Texas, right? They're gonna think they're rude and arrogant, and they're not gonna be successful. So personality types matter in the area you're calling, right? So, I mean, even us, when we'll put a caller in somewhere and we think, oh man, this caller's gonna kill it here, and they suck. They don't do anything. We move them to Florida, right? Or we move them to Kentucky and they kill it, and they're our best caller. So just know that personality types matter in the areas. But yeah, so I would, as far as where to start off at, geography, I would say just start wherever you can take on-site appointments. It seems like everyone's going virtual appointments now. Where 5 years ago, a virtual appointment was like death. Like, no, how could you book me a virtual appointment? Now everyone's like virtual. So I think we need to get back to more on-site appointments.
I don't disagree. I think the human being touch is important, but I understand people are still doing the hybrid, Zoom, Teams, whatever. But man, when you can shake somebody's hand, it seems to change the dynamic pretty consistently, especially if you have that personable touch. I guess for the people that aren't as personable, maybe virtual is the way for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just say also too, manage your expectations as far as calling goes, right? So if you're an MSP that only wants 200 seats and up, right, 200 devices and up, and you only want, and you're going nationwide, right, virtual appointments, you only want to talk to the C level. So every we call caller roadblocks, right? So every caller roadblock you put in, you need to knock your expectation down just a little bit, right? Because if you tell me you're in Kentucky and you'll do anything from 1 device to 100, I mean, we're going to crush it for you, right? It's going to be, we're going to make it rain appointments, right? But if you tell me you only want 200 devices nationwide, only with the CIO for co-manage, we're going to get you a handful, but I mean, we're definitely going to have to put our time in. So just manage your expectations depending on your campaign that you're on.
Okay, so with the digital marketing guys that don't take your bet up, they'll tell you that, hey, you got to do it for a while, right? 6 months ain't enough time. Like 14, 16, 18, 20 months. That's what it's going to take to build up the activity that you want out of whatever the things that they're doing, SEO, ads, web, whatever, right? How does it work on the telemarketing side? Could you just do a 30-day investment and get a result, or is that not enough?
I mean, depends on how good of a closer you are. I mean, so when we bring on a client, we give them a ramp up period, a 4-month ramp up period, right? Because we're dropping emails in and we're warming it up, but that doesn't mean we're not going to produce anything out the gate. I mean, I've seen accounts come out the gate. Actually, one just recently in New Jersey where we dropped 18 appointments in 1 month on them, and he closed one of them. Doesn't happen all the time, just so we're clear. All right. So, but I mean, it does happen though, right? So just because this is your first month with your cold caller doesn't mean you should only expect 1 appointment, right? If your data is good, your caller is making the dials, right, and putting in the time, and your script's right, and everything else is aligned, then you should be fine. I do agree that probably with digital marketing campaigns, that length of time that it's running, because again, digital marketing is all about branding. It's all about putting that logo in front of you. So when you think of, oh, I need something, and then you've seen that logo so many times that you just instantly gravitate towards that product, right? So you know what I mean? So it's if I go to look at a truck, I've seen so many Ford ads, right? That I'm my first instinct is to go to Ford dealership. I mean, now I'm gonna have like 20 ads on my LinkedIn and my Facebook for Ford. Now that I said that, thanks big data. But
so talk to me. So give me an example. I mean, obviously you've been dealing with MSPs for a while. Can you give us an example of like the one in New Jersey that you said you got 18 appointments for? What was the criteria? How many calls were made to get to those 18? And like, were they targeting dentists? I don't know. Paint the picture. How did that one start from 0 to successful?
Yeah, so that person, their criteria was I mean, they had a few filters on it, but it wasn't bad. So they wanted 10 and up, 10 devices and up, right? Obviously, they'll take, you know, the 6s and the 7s and the 8s if there's a need, right? Which you know, I don't know why we even, you know, say that, because we don't book appointments always as a need, because we are going to waste anyone's time. But you know, they pretty much dealt with everything except for retail, restaurants, and nonprofits and government. So it was pretty wide open. Yeah, I mean, I think it was just really, in that case, it was just the effort of the caller. The caller was making anywhere from, I think, 200 to 300 dials a day,
Wow.
depending on their contact rate. So, you know, so it was just really the effort of the caller. I would also say, you know, I know we're probably, it looks like we're running out. I don't know if we're running out of time, but
No, we got plenty of time. Keep going.
Be careful when you're managing. And I would say this because I just said the word dials, and that's the first thing that makes anyone that hasn't been in the space for a long time crazy is, you know, you'll read one telemarketing, you know, book for idiots that says dials is everything. If you don't make all the dials, as many dials you can, if you're just not dialing, you're never going to be successul. And then you'll read another telemarketing book that says it's talk time, right? So, you know, which one is more important? Well, so, you know, and this is something that I've been doing, and probably started this about 15 years ago, and it's in every call center still that I've ever touched, right? And it's called we manage on the blend system, right? So basically, what we do is we say talk time is important and dials are important, right? And neither of them are more important than the other. So how do you manage your caller? So let's say you're a person, you say, okay, dials is how I manage your caller. Let's say your caller is dialing and the list is so good they talk to every single person that they call, right? And you're telling your caller, if you don't make 200 dials a day, you're not going to be successful. It's not mathematically possible for your caller, if their contact rate is up higher than normal, to make 200 dials. It is mathematically not possible. If they're talking to every single person that they reach, so then what? You're gonna write that caller up, you're gonna fire them because they didn't hit 200, but they're writing the appointments. So how is that bad, right? Then on the other scope, you know, if your caller is calling the leads and no one's picking up, how are they supposed to get to the talk time, right? So, you know, really talk time, dials, KPIs are all just to manage effort, right? So to get a true effort from a caller, put 1 point for every dial, 1 point for every minute, add them together, and say and then set the bar at, let's say, 250 to start. You need to hit a 250 blend, which means you can hit 200 dials, 50 minutes, 200 minutes, 50 dials, right? To show your effort every day. And then over time, you just move it up. Now your blend's 275. Now your blend's 300. Now your blend's 325. So you keep pushing their effort up and scaling it up on them. But if you ever put a caller or a telemarketing person against the wall and say, if you don't hit 200 dials, then you're not successful, you're gonna get fired. That telemarketer is going to hit 200 dials no matter what. And what I mean about that is they're gonna call movie phone, they're gonna check the weather, they're gonna call one of your leads that's an 800 number, and then the automated answering service will pick up. They're gonna call that 10 times. They're gonna make stupid dials, fake dials, which is going to cost you money. Why? Because you read a book that says they need to make 200 dials a day. So use a blend system and manage them the right way.
No, that's a great feedback. Let me ask you a question. You said, you know, the answer rate, right? So what's the average, right? If you're calling 200, 250 people, are they going to get voicemails 80% of the time? Or like, what is the percentage of, you know, I didn't get to an actual human being versus I did?
It really depends on the quality of your list. So it's funny because, you know, we were talking about this the other day. I talked to people, by the way, I talked a lot of call center stuff with people. So, but the better your list is, a lot of times the lower your contact rate is going to be. And this is why, right? Because if you have all direct dials, right, you don't have an EA or a switchboard picking up, right? So you're going to that person's voicemail, boom, 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 right? Which is not a bad thing, right? So what I tell people to do is when you're getting when you have direct dials in your system and you see that they're direct numbers, eventually if you call that number and that person's got to pick up, right? So mark those as your hot leads, and then twice a day, put them in your hopper or in your list, and then do a power hour where you do nothing. Don't leave any voicemails. Don't send any emails. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't do anything. You're just hitting those direct dial numbers, and eventually somebody's going to pick up, right? And then the other time is when you go through the numbers and aren't direct. But contact rates, I mean, they're just going to fluctuate. They fluctuate based on the list, and based on the time of year. I mean, from really from Thanksgiving to the second week of January, you're spinning your wheels. You're out on a desert island with a shovel trying to find treasure, right? Same thing for July, but we still have to work. People still have to eat, so we keep calling during those months. But you just have to understand that the times of year, the contact rates will go up, contact rates will go down. Like I said, I've been doing this enough time that I already know when the lows are going to be, and a lot of times we'll let our customers know ahead of time. We're like, hey, look, it's spring break season. A lot of people are going to be on vacation. A lot of people are going to be out of the office. Your contact rate's going to go down. Your dial is going to go up. Just this is what we're going to do. So contact rates fluctuate.
No, that's fair. I mean, I thought it was always higher, right? Because people are going to hit voicemails more than they're not. But I digress. You're the expert, right? That's why I'm asking you. And to your point, right? Fluctuations based on the quality of the data. That's why we started off the call with make sure that we're getting good information. And the first thing you said was don't, skimp out on where you're getting your data from, because good data, better contact rate. Bad data, horrible contact rate. Got it.
Absolutely.
So there's a practice in vendor land. I mean, if we zoom out to the greater world, right? This happens a lot where people try and dial you from what looks like a local number based on where your number is, thinking that you think that it's a call from in town versus from a larger company that's maybe on a national scale. Some people hate that. Some people like that. You think that practice works, or does it have like an anti, kind of effect to it because people get a little bit salty?
I don't think it has a negative. I don't think it has a negative effect. Nor do I think it really has that much of a positive effect either. I mean, really, the only time that's actually gonna have a positive there's really no negative to it. I mean, look, people say it's negative because one or two people will pick up the phone. Oh, I can't believe you're using a local number trying to trick me, right? Okay, so if you have 5 callers and you're calling for a whole year, you probably made a couple 100,000 dials, right? So 2 people out of 200,000 told you it was a terrible idea, and you're a bad person, and now that's just a bad practice. That doesn't make sense, right? So no, I don't think it's not a bad practice. I mean, we do it, but the only reason we do it is because when we sell callers, our callers are dedicated to that person. They don't hop around to different accounts. So we give them a number that matches the MSP. We give them or the vendor. We give them we have the vendor, the client, make them an email address that's with them. So they almost become part of their company. So it makes sense to give them a number that matches the main number, right? But I think the only time that that you could say this is something that's gonna prove to be the best practice is if you're calling cell phones, right? Because we all get a call on our cell phone, we're looking, we're like 613. I don't even know who's. I don't even know anyone for 613, right? But if it's 727, right? Somebody calls me, it could be my kid's school, could be anything, right? And then you're gonna pick up. Like I said, 2 people out of 100,000 are gonna get mad and say something. The other one's gonna be like, oh hey, and just kind of be caught off guard, right? So yeah, if you're calling cell phones, which I know isn't terrible practice, but I probably wouldn't do it. But if you're desperate enough, you would.
Let's talk about reporting, because I assume that's a big part of this conversation. I assume every company you're dealing with has a different PSA or CRM, or maybe they just like to slice and dice data in Excel. I mean, for years we've heard the PSAs may not be the greatest CRMs. What are you seeing out there? What are people using?
I mean, most of the people use that we see are either using it. Well, it really depends on what methodology and when, kind of like the Game of Thrones, what house you belong to, right? So are you, do you belong to the ConnectWise house? Or are you part of the, the Kaseya house, or, the Robbins house, right? And, the ones that are all battling over middle, MSP world. So, it's really, they're all over the place. I've even, actually a trend that I've seen come up is it seems like some MSPs, at least the more mature ones, are just saying, you know what, we don't want to use this. We're just going to create our own. And I've been seeing a lot of custom CRMs and PSAs. So it's that's been neat, because it definitely creates a little bit of an interesting situation with integrating. But as long as they're going to put in the labor and take care of the integration, that's fine. But I see a lot of yeah. So it just really depends on what house there are. One that I've seen come up a lot is, I know Glass Hive is kind of making its way around. So we've seen a lot of Glass Hive in the last couple of months.
Okay, so like do some MSPs reach out to you and say, hey, I already have contacts I want you to contact, or I do a lot of events, within the company, we want you to do post-event follow-up, and then now they're giving you data versus you starting from an external list? Like, what's the breakdown versus I'm buying data versus I'm handing you data from my existing system?
So, we always provide the first 1,000 leads, right? And I do that as a practice because I don't want your crappy data affecting my results. So I'm going to give you the first 1,000 leads for me to call on, and that way I can show you what the good data looks like, right? So when we have that argument, because after that 1,000, we make the client supply their own leads, right? And we don't actually, I don't mind, and I think it's a really good practice, and I think more value when you have when an MSP or a vendor hands us their whole list, right, and says, hey, we want you to go through this, because the caller can scrub it, they can do research on every lead. So we just have to have that understanding that, hey, look, when we're going through this list for you, things are going to be a little bit slower because we're going to take our time and we're going to research every lead before we call it. So we're going to take an extra 20-30 seconds between calls, looking it up, looking it through LinkedIn, making sure this person still works there, going through it, right? And then if that person doesn't work there, who's going to be the person we want to reach out to? Then cloning a new lead, making a net new lead, right? So that we can now put this in your database, right? But we're only having to do that once, because once we do it the first time, we're going to make all the notes, we're going to put everything we found, and then the second pass through all those leads are going to be a lot faster. But we just have to have that, kind of understanding that, hey, this is going to be a process to the first. So what I usually recommend is, hey, we'll take your whole database over if you want us to go through it like that. Even if it's used, even if it's junk, we don't mind doing it. But I think we should still continue to buy good data too, right? And then we mix those in. So we take 500 of these, 500 of these, put them together, and then you should get this pretty similar to close to the same results, and get your database clean, which is, it's priceless.
I would assume a lot of the data in the database is probably not clean.
No. I see. We've seen some bad stuff. So, but it's because the problem is that people make they make dumb data mistakes. So like if I'm calling George, right, and George no longer works there, people train their callers and their data people to just put the new person, instead of making cloning it and making it a net new lead, I'm just going to take George's name out and I'm just going to put Steven's name in, right? And I mean, that's a terrible mistake. And here's why: because the next time I go to buy a lead list, right, and George, the old guy, is sitting there, it's not going to filter out. So now I'm going to get that same bad lead, and I'm going to have Steven, and I'm going to have George. And then my callers have to do the same thing they just did for George and do the same research, because I didn't leave it in there. So what you should do is you should leave that George lead in, clone it, make a new lead, mark this one as bad, so it always stays in the list, but it just stays in as not a dialable lead. So then it could dupe out the next time you buy a list.
Makes perfect sense. But I would say most people don't think about that.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're finished with a campaign, how does what data do you hand back to the MSP, right? Hey, I booked you. Okay, what should they expect in the file?
So when you're doing business with us, you have the option for us to integrate as long as we can for us to integrate with your system, and we're pushing notes and all that over anyways. But one thing we do too is we will build a LinkedIn account with your caller's name and attach it to your company, and we're connecting with all the leads that they're calling, and we're messaging them as well. That helps warm up, and then plus we do it. You get a call somebody, you're getting ready to go meet somebody, or you just met somebody. So the first thing you do is you look them up on your phone and LinkedIn. This guy really worked here.
Downgraded to a smaller screen. I know.
So you look them up and see if they really work there. So if it's important too to have your BDR on your LinkedIn as an employee, right? So it can verify that they actually working for you. So once somebody if somebody does offboard, and I'm only using this hypothetically because we actually haven't had anyone off for this yet. We haven't lost anyone, knock on wood. So, but if that did happen, sorry, that was a little plug for myself. But if it did happen, I would give them everything. We give them the LinkedIn account. We don't charge them for it because what do I want any of this stuff for, right? I can't resell those leads. It's unethical, right? If I get somebody from the same area and I sell you the same leads, that's unethical for me to do that, right? So we just give them everything. We give them the LinkedIn account. We give them because we give everyone a Glass Hive account too. We let them have that as well. We just hand it over. I'm not going to do anything with it, and I don't want to burn that bridge with you. That's where a lot of people in the lead generation space have made that mistake over the years, because they get salty and they want to start burning bridges and suing people, because they're trying to leave them because somebody might think the grass is greener on the other side, or a new handsome hotshot in lead generation business named Steven comes along, right, and says he could do everything for everyone. So they'll sue you contract, and then guess what? If you go through all those lengths to keep somebody being salty like that, they are never going to come back. Even if that grass was supposed to be green, was dirt, they will never come back to you. So why fight them? Oh, you want to leave? Okay, here you go. Here's all your stuff. I'll see you in 2 months. Right?
I mean, bottom line is, it is a small sandbox, especially in MSP land. Everybody talks to everybody. Trust me, they're all here. A lot of them are here. So zoom out, right? Why outsource this function versus insource, right? Other than, hey, good help's hard to find and I have a hard time hiring people. I mean, obviously don't necessarily need to be a PhD in order to do calling, but why outsource versus insource?
The only reason I would the only reason I would say outsource rather than insource is outsource if you're not getting the results you want. If you find you're not able to manage the person, because it does take a special person to do these calls, right? Where people make the mistake of, oh, I'm going to hire a BDR, right, to do cold calling, right, and I'm going to hire somebody that's just out of college, and no, that is the worst person to hire to do this job, right? Because that person out of college has been told that they're going to make six figures, that they're going to do this, and then they're the king of the world because of that college degree, right? They are not going to put in the hard dials, and if they do at first, they are not going to do it long term. They're only using your BDR job as a stepping stone to the next job, right? So don't spend your time hiring the college educated person to do cold calling for you, right? Now, if they're doing cold calling and sales, it's different, right? But you should never mix those anyways. That's oil and water, right? It's terrible practice. But the person that you want to hire for a cold call is somebody who's been doing telemarketing for years, that this is what they do, because telemarketing people are slightly crazy, right? I mean, if anyone that could do something 200 to 300 times a day and get told no 99.9% of the time, and then have success 1% to 0.01% and be happy with that, right? It is probably just a tad bit mentally unstable, right? So I joke around all the time. I said that, we run a house of crazy people. It's a circus, right? Like I could shock somebody. We could do a whole nother MSP initiative with some of the things I've seen and heard over the last 25 years of the call center business. But they're hard. It's a hard group to manage, right? So I would tell anyone, before you outsource, do it yourself first, because you're going to understand the challenges. You're going to understand, where you fell off, and you're going to have a better appreciation for what your outsource company is doing, right? So try to do it in-house first. And you reach out to somebody if you want help doing it in-house. Send me a message on LinkedIn and ask me a question. I'll send you a script. Hire somebody. If it doesn't work, then call us. But always do it in-house first, because if you could do it in-house, there's no reason to go outside, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, people might think I'm crazy for saying that due to the nature of my business, but there's 42,000 MSPs in the world, right? More than that, 20,000 vendors.
I was going to say, it depends who you talk to. I've heard 85,000, 125,000, 150,000.
Right.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
I need 200-300 of them, in my life. So, if the other, 40,000 need help with something, I don't mind. But you should always start off outsourcing first, because you'll understand it. You'll understand how it works and how difficult it is.
Okay, that's good advice, to be honest with you, because I've seen a lot of companies fail on each side of the aisle, both MSP and vendor, hiring a BDR. Really, honestly, hiring a BDR, and even if you compensate them well, it just gets to the point where they lose interest. They lose interest in that function. So I don't know. It actually is a hard job. I'm not saying that it's a complicated job. I'm saying it's a hard job.
Well, they lose interest. So the BDR lose interest because that's not what they want to be, right? So they don't want to be a telemarketer. There are telemarketers in the world that actually want to be telemarketers, right? Because that's the one thing they're good at, right? And these are normally people that are not financially strong. They live paycheck to paycheck, right? So the more money they can make, the more appointments they can set, the more commission they can make, is what usually drives them. So that's really the person you want anyways, because they're going to set you the most appointments, right? So don't go after the college educated, straight out of college with their degree guy, because he's not going to last. You're going to spend all that time and money and effort training them, showing them how to do them, buying them all the telemarketing guru books, and going to all the webinars and seminars about telemarketing, which are just aren't going to teach you anything, because they probably don't even. It's probably a different industry. You're trying to take one industry of cold calling and put it to another. It doesn't make sense. So, but yeah, start just.
Have
look
you
at the
seen
local
any?
paper.
Have you seen any success with home sourcing? JetBlue, they were one of the very first airlines that basically took part-time people working from home and made them their call center agents. Mm-hmm. So have you seen success there?
Absolutely. My whole call center it works from home. My entire operations work from home, because something happened during COVID, right? So all the really good agents liked working from home. So where I know a lot of my competitors are struggling to fill their call center, I've got it right now. I could put 150 people on the phone tomorrow, right? I haven't ran an ad since October, and I get about 100 applications a day, right? At home, the at-home workforce. Now, this is where it gets difficult, though, right? So even we have had our trials and tribulation, right, with managing an at-home workforce of our size, right? There's different tricks, there's different programs you can buy to monitor them, but at the end of the day, it's gonna, if you're doing it on your own to start with somebody in-house, then move to somebody at home, because you have to, because telemarketers, if you hire somebody, like I told you to hire, you hire a real call center person, they're tricky people. So now you're taking that tricky and you're putting them unsupervised at home. You have to know how to read the numbers and read tendencies and see, like, just the monitor and see what they're doing and say, I know what you're up to right now, right? Just from experience, because if you don't, they're gonna take you for a ride.
Oof.
But
I don't.
But yeah, I mean, I don't see the good call center agents ever going back to an office, ever.
Fair enough. I see Brad's popped into the Q&A, so all your comments pretty valid there, Brad. I think we're right on track there with the hardness of monitoring remote employees and making sure they're doing their job. I assume at some point it's a metrics-based business, right? Either they're producing and they're calling and the appointments are showing up, or they're not, right? So kind of like sales, right? If you're not closing deals and I can't see transactions coming from your role, well, then I work backwards from there, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, and do yourself a favor, if you're gonna have your own caller, success is the number one KPI, right? Don't get locked into, even when I was talking about the blend, the dials, and like all this, right? Man, all these KPIs and saying, well, you booked me 5 appointments today, but you only made 50 calls. Well, you know what I would say? They booked you 5 appointments, right? They made the right 50 calls. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't care about all the other numbers as long as you're successful, right? And success looks different for everyone, right? I've got callers that have very low, like, effort numbers, but really high appointments, and they're all really, really good appointments, right? And then I got other callers that have to dial their butt off and call 250 times a day to get the same level, right? So in a call center, you have to manage fairly, but never equally, right? So to me, success rules, right? I don't care what you do. If you're putting up appointments every day and they're great appointments, then I'm not even, you can ask me their dials and their numbers, and I wouldn't even know them, because I didn't even look. Making appointments every day, right? But that person that's not making appointments every day, I can tell you exactly how many calls they had every day of this week. And because those we use KPIs to find out why they're not successful.
Okay. So KPIs help you understand how to make them better. You're not necessarily using that as the stick per se.
No, absolutely not. No, I would never. I mean, I've heard of call centers firing really, really good agents because their numbers were low, but their success was high. And that to me, that's the dumbest thing you can do. Stop reading books. So,
Stephen, how do people find you, contact you, learn more?
Just go to hunterartemis.com and you can schedule a meeting there. I'll be at most of the shows, walking around, talking to people. We have booths at all the ASCII, all the Channel Pro, even some of George's shows coming up too, hopefully. Besides that, you can email me at smith. So first initial, last name Smith. That is my real name, by the way. It's not an alias. At hunterartemis.com, or add me on LinkedIn. So.
All right. Appreciate you, Stephen. We learned a lot today. This session was recorded. You'll find it at mspinitiative.com shortly under the sessions menu. Keep coming back Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And Stephen, we'll see you out on the road, my friend.
All right. Thank you, George.
You got it, guys. Have a good one.
All right.